Good evening, everybody. How are we this evening? Good evening, Carol. You're on the ball this evening. So how are we all? Have we all benefited from a slight drop in the temperature today? And we had this weird stuff falling from the sky called rain. Didn't last for very long, but it was quite heavy when it did, and it really took the edge off the heat, so that's nice. We are still melting here in the studio. Have my usual companion down there. Don't know if I can get him to come and say hello, because he's asleep in front of a camera and I don't really want him to move because he might knock a camera. Hi Julie. Right, no dilly-dallying today because we're going to get cracking, because we're going to be picking up where we left off last week. So for those that weren't here last week, you can watch back on YouTube. And it is where we started to make our paste papers, and you know how fabulous it has been this week seeing people's paste papers that they've been making throughout the week. It's been brilliant. So those people that have been making them and sharing them, I love it. Brilliant. Thank you very much. It makes it all worthwhile. So watch it back for the recipe, and we're sort of at the stage now where we've got loads of papers. They're dry, and we can start messing about with them. So I just wanted to do a quick, because last week you saw me start to make the bulk of this. So if you remember correctly, if I piece it back together, it was kind of like that we made, and then I chopped it up into the four. And we worked on this one. Since last week, I have gone in with my Posca pen because I decided the bolder lines were nicer. This one, I actually preferred up the other way. Just made it a bit more aesthetically pleasing. This one, I really, really loved all the textures and stuff in the background, so I kept it fairly simple. And then this one, I went to town because it was sort of the least interesting, hi Hazel, paper corner out of all of them. So I did a little bit of stamping, I did a little bit of doodling, I highlighted the leaf a little bit, let it curl up. I think it was naturally going to do that because of the heat, and added some words. So that's my set of 4 from last week. But what I then did, put them back on the shelf, I started to make a mini accordion album, and this was created on an A4 piece of card. I took some of my paste papers, chopped all the white off them, okay, and then using them fairly square or rectangular, straight edges, I pasted them together, chopped it up and made one of these little mini books. But I decided it was a bit too mini, but even so, it is lovely because it is still a nice, so I am going to work with it, but just not tonight because I didn't think it would necessarily show up easily on screen. So I made a bigger piece. Right, this is wrapping paper it's on. It's the craft wrapping paper. I actually put too much paste on, so to get these pasted down, I used my leftover paste. Well done, Elaine. So I pasted each of them like wallpaper and stuck them down, but you can see I've trimmed all the white away, so there's very, very little white. There is a tiny bit off screen there, but I tried to trim them down. I did save the trimmings, don't panic. So I thought on a bigger one, I'll show you how to make the actual book, and it will come out a bit of a better size. Now, because it started to wrinkle up a little bit, I actually weighed it down, and I made a mistake in that because I weighed it down with my cutting mat, and that wouldn't let the air in, so some of the paste stayed wet for longer, which is what's caused this running here. But actually I really like it, so I'm not that bothered, but that's also where it's run through the back. Right, so let's make this into a book. I just thought this is going to be a better size, so there is going to be a lot of rustling, I do apologise. So fold it in half and the other thing was when I did the card one, because I'd layered all these papers on the top, it just made it a little bit thick. So it was harder to do this. So we're going in half that way. And then we're going to come up to the middle. So this is going to make, I'm guessing, about an A6, between A6 and A5 size book. So I'm just really creasing that down. You hate white bits, yeah. Right, so Christine, Marina, good afternoon, good evening. Okay, so I'm getting some creases here. I'm going to turn it round because that's a bit easier. So just going back to what I just pasted, I did overlap in places. It's not glued down brilliantly in some places, but if that was bothering me, I could go back in. I'm not making more paste tonight. I cooked myself last week. Okay. So I've divided it up into 4. And I'm going to do the same going the other way. So you can see it's a bit of a wrestle because I'm doing such a big one. Okay, get that. I mean, I could have done this in advance, but I think it's nice for you to see from start to finish. And the fact we pop these up on YouTube, don't forget they'll be up on YouTube forever and ever. So you can watch these back, and I try and give them a fairly sensible title. Okay. Oh, that's a bit thick there. I'm going to just turn it round. Where's my line gone? There. And by doing it this way, I'm not having to measure. So whatever paper you've got, so you could cut yourself a length of wallpaper lining paper. That would work really nicely to get your base. You just don't want anything too thick, because you can see, as I've added the layers, bearing in mind my paste papers were only on copier paper. It doesn't have to get some bulk quite quickly, which is nice. And it is very dry, a bit like everything else. So maybe this would have been slightly easier to do. Not while it's still wet with the glue, because that's going to make it a little bit more delicate. But you can just see, so bearing in mind that this was done with that cornflower glue. Right, I'm going to turn it over because it's going to be easier for me to do. I'm now going to cut it into strips lengthways, she says, having buried her scissors already. Who decided to do a bigger book that didn't fit on the table? Right, so cutting along that fold. Very satisfying. One bit. So you can see, this is going to make a sizable journal. 2 bits. Now, I am making this a landscape journal, because if you look, here we go, last strip. If you look, my pages are folding and creating it landscape. Now, if you wanted a portrait journal, instead of cutting up the page, cut along, so you get your 4 sections that way. Okay, so what you've got is 4 sections of 4. So, and then using the plain side, you're going to create your little accordions. Okay, and it's one of these lovely no measure, and again, because we've just been folding, it's fallen randomly how we've got, so we've got all these lovely pages with, you know, no white space, no blank journal page. We're starting with fabulous interest. So these are going to join together to make a big long snake of a book. So how do we join them? Get your two ends. Okay. And I'm going to use masking tape so that you can see the joins. But on that little one I did, I actually cut up some of my paste papers into strips and glued those along, but it meant it needed time to dry. So I thought that's no good for on Facebook Live. So line them up and put a bit of tape down one side. Okay, press it down firmly, flick over. So you're just putting them end to end. And down we go. Don't worry about the overhang, we'll deal with that in a minute. Take that off up to the way. Get your next group. And if you've cut straighter than me, then, but I kind of don't mind. This has got so much movement. Been a bit naughty there. I'm going to flick that over. So you can do it that way as well. Okay, next bit. It's now off the table. Let me just fold that up a bit. And you could alternate. And I've not picked them up specifically in the same order I cut them up. Okay. So just line that up. Bit of tape. I mean, actually the masking tape's working quite nicely because it's got a translucency to it. So you could use washi tape. You might need to back it up with a bit of glue or something later if it doesn't feel like it's holding brilliantly. But for tonight, that's perfect. It's just the wet glue I needed to let it. Okay, so once you've got your bits all joined together, snip off the ends where they overhang the page. Whoop! That's a good old long book, isn't it? Here we go. And then what we'll start to do is we'll start to decorate some of these pages. And then I've got a few more things that I want to show you as well. Right, so then just concertina fold it up. Give it a little squish and a little flatten. And then I think we're going to go this way. I mean, you can see you've got the start of the most fabulous journal. Now, if this bothers you, because it's making you want to think, hang on, I want to open it the other way, very simple solution to it. You just reverse every fold. Just take your time with this. And then what that will do is it will put your pages sort of round the right way, if that bothers you. Sometimes things like that don't bother me, other times they do. What that then gives me is a plain cover, which I can obviously decorate later. But now we've got our journal. And just straight away, there's none of that scary white space. It does also lend itself to nice double page spreads. Okay, so you just got fabulous, interesting pages. So we'll start at the beginning. I haven't got my little thing. Okay, let's just do a few different techniques on some of these pages. So first things first, I have watered down some white gesso. Okay, and I'm going to do blob there, blob there, well, a generous blob there, generous blob there. Yep. And then I didn't get to show you this last week, my puffer. Hang on, I've got a spider. Got a money spider. Oh, that's good. Hang on to that. So this is just... See, you get these amazing splatters. Hang on, that's... Oh, it's a fly. So you just get these lovely whited out areas. Now, because I've watered my gesso down, it won't be stark white. It will absorb some of the colours from underneath. Give it a little dry, because we're going to over stamp on it. Tell you what I am going to do though. I'm going to flick my book out. Like, what I've done is I've opened it out so I can lay this flat. I'm so tempted not to heat gun, but I do want to get this over stamped. Yeah, it's such a nice one. It's a lot easier to follow than a maze book, in the fact that it has that natural progression. Okay, so I'm just going to dry some of these areas because I want to over stamp. But you can see already that some of that colour's coming through, so it's not completely and utterly obliterated what's underneath. It will take on, but it will give you sort of a toned down look. This might not be fully dry, but this heat gun's getting quite hot. So I've got a fan there, heater here, but you can see it's sort of sucking up some of the colour. Yeah, this bit's still a bit wet. Right, so we'll just do some, in the meantime, I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to do some stalks coming down from these. Okay, and maybe some leaves, just to give that a chance to dry. And you could kind of just leave it like that, or you could doodle some flowers, but I'm going to cheat and I'm going to use some flower stamps. So I've got my Floral Creations. I'll use you in a minute. I want you and I want you. I've got an acrylic block that hasn't got string wrap around it. Probably not. Now I'm stamping over gesso, and sort of paste paper and all sorts. So I am actually using a StazOn, or I would, only because my VersaFine Clairs are still in the car and I forgot to get them out. But this will also, this won't mind the wetness of the, okay. And by having that white behind it, it's just making the flowers stand out a little bit. I am going to swap to, I've got the dark blue StazOn as well. You know me, I'd not normally. How runny is the gesso? Pretty runny. Really drippy drippy. Okay. And then you could add some colour to that as well. So I have got some oil pastels here. I've also got my pencil crayons. Hopefully the gesso is dry enough for me to be able to colour in the flowers here, just to make them pop a little bit. This could be watercolour pencils, just to add a little bit of colour. I'm gonna, right before I lean in that StazOn with my duck t-shirt, so I'm gonna add a little bit of colour there. But again, good for splatter. Strange you should mention that. We will be splattering in a minute. Not necessarily on this page. I want to have a bit of green. Also, I'm very aware that we haven't got anything sort of framing this. These are floating around at the moment. And because we've just made this book, so I want to do something to frame it, which I will do in a minute. Just looking to see if we've got a green sharpened. I have. Here we go. So just adding. The nice things with pencil crayons is they will go over the top of your paste papers, adding a bit of depth of colour without obliterating what's underneath them. Okay, so and it just gives you sort of an extra layer of interest. Also, I'm not overly worried where that page ends. Let's add a bit. I'm colouring, you can see, because the paint's still wet, I'm colouring quite lightly. It's just to get those flowers to pop. Yeah, you see that having that, and also once that's dry, I will continue. If I had a black stays on, it would be even better, but I haven't got my black stays on. Right, how are we going to frame this? So we know the page finishes there, so we want to do something. We could just do the traditional ink the edges, or we could use a stamp to create a frame. So let's go with use a stamp. Right, in terms of how watery is the gesso, quite watery, as I've just looked over here and there's gesso everywhere. Clean that up in a minute. Let me just put this, because that will stain the counter. Bear with me. Don't even know when that happened. Oh, hang on. Might have to sand that bit of... Oh, there's plastic there and everything. Oh dear. We'll just throw a paper towel on it. That'll be fine. Stick that under there. That'll be fine. Nobody tell Paul. He won't be watching. It's okay. Covered in gesso now. Right, let's come in with... I'm going to come in with the teal. So my idea here is to create a little bit of framing. So I'm not doing too much, just a little bit to create sort of an edge around. Now when I come to over here where we're starting on the next pages, it's going to actually be really hard if I fold the book up. So what I'll do is I'll mask it off. Okay, just with a bit of scrap paper. And just to create a little bit of a sort of a border here. Might even do a little bit of inking. Can't remember what inks I've got under the counter. And obviously it's going to need some words, which I will find and add later. But it's just this idea of having that splat of white which pulls the eye in. Break that up a little bit. Now I haven't got full words, but what I might do, instead of doing words, I'm now going to add an extra couple of stems, bit of a taller one there. And I'm going to stamp that same flower when she finds it. Okay. It's actually my jelly press handle that I'm using to crease down because my iron's weighting something down. Now I am breaking a golden rule here. I am using StazOn paper. It's not a massively big golden rule, but StazOn isn't actually designed for paper. It's designed for non-porous surfaces, so it's not the best for stamping on paper, but it will do the trick. So instead of colouring these ones in, I am going to use book page. So it would be better if I had a black ink pad, or I had the confidence to draw these by hand. But if I've got a stamp that's the same as drawn by hand, but probably neater and easier. So I'm going to add that to there. Tell you what I haven't done, other than spill white gesso everywhere, I haven't put any glue out. So, bit of glue. So sometimes using a plainish, so you've got the white that's splattered to make those flowers pop, and then using book page without colour on, that helps bring that to pop. Okay, so just, and then we'll move on to another double page. Okay, just quickly cutting that round. Okay, that's gesso, glue, gesso, don't let me muddle those up again. Okay, so you can just start building it up like that, using that splatter of white to give you an element to stamp on. Okay, so moving along to our next section. So we're sort of again working on a double page spread. So we've got one double page. Right, I kind of like this, and I think this needs to have some colour to it. So I'm going to come in with my oil pastels, and I'm going to do some red circles. Ish circles. Very, actually that one's going to need to be, okay, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a smear. Little bit of a smear. I'm going to come in with white on that one as well. Just give it a bit of contrast. And we'll add, eek, can't pick it up. Okay, just very loose circles. You don't even need to do the swirly swirly with your finger if you don't like it. There's my fold. Okay, another one there. And I've got another colour that's going to show up on there. Let's go with this purple. Oh yeah, that's going to show up there nicely. So, just getting these blobs. Now I'm going to draw roses over the top of them. Now, I can't draw, but I can do swirls. So, all you do, I'm using a permanent marker for this. You could use your Posca pens. You just do swirls. Okay. So just do swirls. And you're starting to get the illusion of a rose. It's not, it's abstract, it's doodled, it's, right, there's my fold there. So this time to frame my pages, I'm going to do some doodling. I have gone to my Posca pen now. And I want to give each of these a leaf. I'll be doing them at different directions. Again, it's not fancy art. It's a lippy, you know, it's a ellipse shape with some lines in it. But it's that illusion. Okay, and then I'm just going to do some sort of almost vines that join them together, going a little bit thinner. Just to break up that background, and then maybe do some little lumps that just break that up, and then I'm going to come in with a green. Have fun, Juliet. Again, I could come in with my pencil crayons if I wanted. Actually, they might show up a little bit better. Just adding a little bit of green just to give that illusion of a vine going along. Say, I can't draw, but you can see that these look like roses. And it was just a blob of colour smudged and then a swirl in the middle. Such an easy way to create a really sort of nice little sort of rosy kind of look. Okay. So really sort of sketchy. I'm loving that effect there. You see, I'd be very tempted to do another flower there, but maybe bravely do it. Bravely do it, she says. Because I just... Do you know how brave this is? That's better. It was bugging me that they weren't black. So, I can use the stamp as a guide. And again, swirls in the middle. Happier with that. And then I'm also going to add my telltale wiggle around the outside. Oh, that's just fun. Fun and cheerful. Okay. Folding it up. Move along. I'm not going to do all the book. I think we'll do 2 more pages because I do want to show you this. So, again, I can't draw. I have got some florally stamps here, but again, I'm not happy that I thought that blue was just going to be strong enough against these colours, but it's not. We do need black. So, let's just add some stalks. Then we're just going to add some leaves. Embrace your inner child when you come to do this. Then we could add some roses to the top. We could add some other little leaves within leaves. And then once that's dry, don't forget to add your wobbly line just to give you your panel. You could again come in and add some colour. This is nice as well, these stalks on the blobs ideas. Or again, you could do the splats of white, but we talked about splats. Let's give this a little bit of a splattering. Stand clear, Marv. Right. Just making sure I've cleared up my mess. It's all over my ruler. I needed my ruler in a minute. So when you're splattering, I don't even know how that's happened. Really don't know how that's happened. Oh well, never mind. Right. So, splattering. You can just load up your brush and do big splats like that. And this is actually a spongy one. That kind of looks cool as well. But if you want to have it a little bit more controlled maybe, load up your thing and then flick. Use something hard to flick. And you get sort of smaller and it spreads a little bit further. Okay. And do that with different colours. But I kind of like, because we specifically didn't have white space on here, I think adding a little bit of white is nice. And because this is the watered down one, it will suck up those colours from underneath. Right, so I think we're done with flowers for now, because I want to show you something that are called knotted birds. So I'm just going to move that. Right, there's good. How is there gesso on the bottom of that? But I like it. Right, so there's gesso on the bottom of my glue pot. You know me, gonna use it. I like that because it's got little ridges. There's the rest of it spilt. Bear with me a minute. Hang on. Really like that. See? Things happen for a reason. Don't panic. In fact, there's white gesso everywhere. Again, I really like the fact that the white is popping. Right, that's not what we were doing. Put that over there. I'm going to move that gesso because that's just going to cause more disasters than it already has. Oh! Oops. My flower cutter's been in it as well. That's kind of cool. Right. That wasn't what we were doing. Got distracted. Let me just clean a little bit of space. Right. Because I think in amongst all these flowers, we want a little bit of cute little birdies. So we want some of our other papers from last week. I need a bit of brown and I want some colour. There's me multicoloured ones. There's some multicoloured ones under here. I think we might go with, we'll go with a bit of the yellows there. I'm going to pop them out of the way. And we want to cut, I'm going to cut off the white and I'm going to cut myself a length of it. Okay. Just a length of paper. And then, as the name implies, we are going to tie a knot in it, which is not as complicated as it sounds. Cut that a bit short. It's going to be a too fat a bird. What I need to do is cut it thinner. I was trying to make my bird too chunky. So, normal knot, cross it over, tuck it in and sort of pull it through. Can you see you've already got a basic bird shape? A round head. However you want his tail to be. Give him a little fancy tail. Give him a fancy tail. We'll give him an eye. He needs an eye. And then he needs a little beak. This is why I grabbed the brown. So we just cut a little triangle. And we add his little beak. And how cute is he? And how simple. So, this one that I messed up, let's do two smaller ones from it. So, cross it over. Tuck it through, just like you're tying a knot. But as you're tucking through, try not to flick the other paper over so that it will lay flat. Okay, just feed it through. This one. Okay. And then we just need to personalise them a little bit And I want this one to be facing the other way. So I'm going to do his head that way. And his tail's going to be really fancy. So I'm going to roll those. So I've sort of feathered them and rolled them. So he's got a really nice little curly tail. Give him a beak. Bit of glue. Bit of an eye. Oh, that's a bit of a beady eye. And then one more. And we'll just give him a little forked tail. Eye, beak. So obviously your beaks can be any colour you want. It just where did that go? Don't make little tiny beaks when you've got a fan on. No. Cut another beak. Okay, hold it in your hand. Tiny spot of glue. There we go. The birds are so cute. So again, really good for your papers when you've trimmed them down. Save your little trimmings. And obviously you can go to town with them. But what I was going to do was make some space. Bring my book back in. And we want a branch. So Posca pen gone. Where's it gone? There it is. So we're going to have... So he could be on the ground. Give him his little legs. So he could be sitting on the ground, and you could do some little music notes. Again, if you've got a stamp, you can use a stamp if you're not happy doodling. And then over here we'll have a branch coming in with this guy sitting on it. So again, he wants some little legs. And then this one, oh, I think, no, we might have him sitting on the branch. No, we'll have him standing down here. So tempted to do a worm. And yes, I'm going to do a worm. Early bird catches the worm. So I'm just going to go to my pink paper. And what's a worm look like? Could be a candy cane, could be a worm. I think you need some eyes. Just be careful when you're drawing on pink. And if when you're drawing like that, you're lacking the confidence in your design because you think, oh, it looks a bit, you know, childlike or whatever. If you cut just outside the lines, it gives it a sort of arty look. So we're going to have our little worm down there for our birdie to eat. It's a bit wrong, I know. I did make the birds, Adam. Could you tell? You knot paper. There you go. Oh, actually, the other side of him looks quite... Oh. Right. Glue dries clear, so I can make that decision. Just don't shut your book if you do that. Should we have the worm over there? We'll have the worm there. Maybe I should have done the worm in brown. Maybe the pink is a bit dodge. Where's my brown? Let's try a brown worm. I think that's going to be safer. Let's give him a little smiley face as well, because he's the early worm. No, he's not. It's the early bird. Okay. So add our worm. So I would definitely add a saying to this one. you know, just a little bit of humour. And again, you could add some brown to the branch. You could cut the branch out of book page. Just, you know, another one I like if I'm doing a sort of a scene, I suppose I'm kind of doing here. I better line him up with his legs. Maybe do the legs after you've glued them down. I like using book pages for clouds. Bear with me a minute. I'm starting to drip. Right, book page, book page. Oh, they are on the floor. So, draw a very crude cloud shape. Cut outside of the line again. It just gives it a really cartoony feel. And the whole thing with these, because I chose really bright, colourful ones, it's got such a joyful feeling. So I didn't want to do anything too serious. I mean, I picked out my beautiful vintage photos and stuff, and it's just like, no, this isn't this is a joyful, childlike, naive kind of style. So I didn't want anything highbrow at all. So we're going to add some clouds. I could again cut some sun. Do I want to add black lines around the outside of my birds? Again, I could if I want to. I'll decide on that later. Let's just add the clouds. I'm not gluing anything down brilliantly, I'm just smearing. Birds, yeah, we need to make more birds. Just grab all the little scraps of paper and just have a go with them, because you can start to, you know, really add a little bit of character to them. To be fair, they would actually look better on a more plain background, but I did want to show you. Again, I'm going to frame this off with my black, so we're getting these, you know, sections. That does look more like the Loch Ness Monster. I think he needs to be singing as well. Happy singing birds. So this is what I mean. It's totally and utterly naive, joyful. Definitely glad I went back and added the black lines to those to the point that he now looks silly without them. But I've used the stamp to give me the shape, which gives me the confidence to draw it. The roses, the smear, you know, it's got that lovely, and look at them in isolation, not necessarily within the whole book. But start to fold that up, because you've just got, remembering that. So I've still got some to play with, and you can see I've got some plainer ones there. I wanted to show you a couple of other little tricks for with your paste papers. So let's make a little bit of space, because I wanted to grab these ones. So these were some of our more premium ones, shall we say, that when we were doing them. So these were ones that I didn't, so this was all made out of ones that were just a little bit more wacky. But I think we might make a front cover for this. So I'll keep it there and we'll do a nice front cover. So these were some of our more interesting ones. That was the one, do you remember I used the rolled up corrugated. This was using the block Waller. These are some of the bits I trimmed off and saved. Do you remember we also made one using, oh, there's a little book page, but the flowers. That is the main one I want to play with. So we've got some more interesting ones here as well. So we've got plenty of stuff still to play with, but I wanted to show you this nice little trick. I'm going to grab these two as well. These are beautiful papers, but I don't think I want to do anything to them, but they're a little bit 3-course mealworm like that. But they're a little bit too busy as they are. So I don't want to add anything else to them, but I want to make them a little bit more artistic, shall we say. So what you do is you actually take a piece of card and you cut a hole in it, so that you've now got a window in which to look around this and see what you want to create. And just having something like that looks really lovely, and I would do nothing else. I would trim my frame down and then trim the paper to go behind it and use it just like that as a piece of abstract art. This one, you know, it just straight away, because you're not seeing all this around the outside, you're just seeing the focal point. And what I do is I tend to have a couple of different sizes, and so like this one, little teeny tiny one. See, that looks really, really cool. You could, and you see it in different ways. You're kind of ignoring that. See how that looks now like a beautiful leaf? You can just move it round and see what you're going to get. But what I had done was I'd cut myself a 3-layer one, like a film strip. So we're going to do, so that one, you could do the whole piece like that. That kind of looks cool. So I'm going to commit to that. Now, we have all discovered that paste paper, other than the actual paper, making the paste is quite cheap. So if you make a paper you really like, and I did really like that one, you know, and you think, oh, you know, I do want to do this, but I want to do something else with it, you can just try and recreate it. And that's, sometimes you can have as much fun doing it. Try not to get, right, inky fingers on. Don't judge the trimmer. So I'm going to come in, sliding that under, and then I'm going to trim flush to the edge there. I am not throwing that away. Again, flush to the edge. Trim off the end. Now if you've got dies to cut this, it's so much easier to do the frame, but I did actually do it with a ruler, and then I've got a piece of black to mount that on. How much, you know, how cool does that look compared to what we've just been doing in the journal? But these are all the same papers. We're just giving it a more grown-up application. So a bit of glue on it, get that mounted up. And I thought that might be quite a nice way to do the front cover. But we could also do a patchwork on it. I just think that is really classy, and pure coincidence that those fell in the middle. If they didn't, I could have engineered it. I could have chopped them each up and stuck them behind the window. But I just think that's such a nice way of using your papers. But also having that little frame to pass over your paper so that you can see it in a very, very different light. Because when you're looking at your paper and you see this edge around it, it can sometimes put you off. But when you start focusing in, you know, you can see that these are fabulous works of art. And if you look back at some of the ones people have shared online that they've made, just, you can see, if you start focusing in on one area, you just get this most amazing look. You know, that's, it's kind of, who said last week it was like very acoustic art? It really does have that feel. But I think our journal needs a front like that. So I'm going to just quickly cut a piece of wire and show you how easy it is to create an aperture. So they are approximately 17 by 12. So if I come with 17, look, I measured loosely, by 12. Should give me a panel that's going to go on the front there. Right. I've done with my trimmer. I'm going to be brave. I could cheat and use my acrylic block to measure it out. That one I think is too big. So I'm going to go with my, or I was going to use my ruler. Oh no, he's all right. So, if anybody else has got the grid ruler by Tim Holtz, you can use this really nicely for this. So I'm going to come in on the black line that comes under where it says ideology. And I'm going to, this is the back I'm working on. I'm going to draw a line along. I'm going to line up on the same line here, line along. And line along. And line along. And then all I'm going to do is, somewhere in this chaos is my knife. There it is. I'm going to confidently cut that middle out. Confidently. Key is confidence. Then decide which is the part I want. Ignore all of this. I'm going to go with that. And yet again we're running out of time and I still haven't shown everything I wanted. But we will do something different next week. We won't do the paste papers, but I will save them all and I'm sure they will feature. Now you can either trim this down with scissors, which would have probably been safer. Yeah, I'm going to do it with scissors. When you're trimming close to a frame like this and you don't want any of it to be overhanging, put your scissors at a very slight angle so they're almost sliding underneath the edge, and then you won't get any bits showing out, which is what I should have done on that side. That so needs a signature there. Doesn't it? It just looks, straight away, it looks like a piece of art. And then we can stick that to our front cover, and you could do all your pages like that. You could do frames for each of your pages. Doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be a full-on. So if you've decided after you've done that page it's too busy, add a frame to it with an aperture peering through so that you're just focusing on one little bit. Look how nice that is now the splatters have started to dry and suck up the colour from underneath. You know, so use that little technique to cover when you've done something and you're not sure, because again, it's that one step further, that idea that just sometimes one step will take you from something you don't like to something you love. Right, so that's going to be my front cover. Might put a bit of weight on that overnight. But I just think, look, you know, that looks like a proper arty journal now. And, you know, I might well go through and add. With those, if I was doing it to those, I would be tempted to have some of the flowers coming out of the frame. Make the frames different sizes. Have 2 or 3 little frames within it. But it's a really nice way of making your pieces a little bit more arty. Right, so, I mean, just, you know, how different do they look just by giving them a slightly different treatment? mounting it with an aperture around it just gives it that really sort of art look. I'm going to save all these bits that I've got there, but I've just looked at the time, and as I haven't fed my husband yet, I might be calling it a night. So let's flick to there. So I hope you enjoyed that. Have a go with all your paste papers you've been making. Also, if I can, I will try and organise next week to be the 1 to 6 challenge, where we come up with 6 prompts for me, and I'll roll the dice, and then I'll do something based on that. Some of the ideas you've come up with are brilliant, so we'll pick 6 from that and we'll try and get that done. But so I might save some of these papers for then as well, because they're already done, so that might be nice to do. So if you've got more ideas for that, pop it on. But in the meantime, I will love you and leave you. Nothing in the craft world happening between now and next week. Have got a bookbinding workshop on Saturday, but I'm also helping Paul with a few events. So in the meantime, have a lovely rest of the week, and I will see you next week, and we'll come up with some prompts and we'll do some art journaling. And it'd be really fun if we try and get organised with it, that you can do it alongside as well. I think it just could be a lot of fun. So in the meantime, I will see you same time, same place next week. Take care.